Good afternoon and welcome to a rather obviously titled segment In Conversation With. This segment is specially designed to showcase the backstories and journeys of individuals who have made an impact in their fields of expertise. Luminary Learning Solutions crafted this segment to offer you the advantage of drawing inspiration for your own personal journey. I'm Anton Thayalan, the Chief Evangelist and co-host this hour. Joining me is our founder and destiny architect, Vidusha Nathavitharana, and together we will take you through an hour of free-flowing discussion. So in today's segment of In Conversation With, it is my privilege and an honor to introduce Billy Schwer. Billy is the former British and Commonwealth, European and World Boxing Champion who is now a personal performance coach. Billy is a reflective and engaging speaker who demonstrates honesty and intelligence through his mental boxing training program. He believes that to produce world-class results in all areas of our lives requires a balance of mental, physical, and nutritional fitness. He is a certified master practitioner of NLP, certified master practitioner of timeline therapy, a certified master practitioner of hypnosis, and a certified master NLP coach. With over 23 years of boxing experience and 10 years of studying ontology, the study of art and science of being, Billy believes that boxing is a great metaphor for life. His experiences in the world of personal growth and change has helped him to come to the idea of mental boxing. He's also the author of Mental Boxing, The Science of Success. So on that note, a very good afternoon and welcome to the show, Billy.
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you. Yes, here we go. It's taken a while to get here. I'm glad to be here.
I was going to say let's rumble, but Billy, before we get into mental boxing, before we kind of get into your books, tell us a little bit about who Billy was growing up, all the way from Ireland, if possible.
That's right. So let me take you back, because one of my early memories was how the identity of Billy the Boxer got created. So the conversation I love to have with people is, do you ever wonder how you ended up the way you ended up? Do you ever wonder why do you do what we do? It fascinates me. Why do people do what they do? Why do they have the life that they've got? Why do they have the body that they've got? Why do they do the jobs that they do? The relationships they have? Why is that? Just fascinates me. So what I did was, upon my retirement from boxing, that journey, that transition to be Billy, from Billy the Boxer. So I went all the way back and I tracked it back to my identity got created. It started to get created for when I was 5 years of age. So Billy the Boxer was created as a 5-year-old. So this is what happened. So I'm in my mum and dad's front room with my two older sisters, Mandy and Lisa. Lisa's 8 and Mandy's 11. And we're rolling around the floor and they're beating me up again. So what they used to do, they used to pin me to the floor. So I'll be on the floor. Mandy would be sitting on my chest, and Lisa would pin my arms back. And I'm kicking and screaming and fighting. I couldn't fight them off. Now I used to get so upset. I used to hyperventilate and turn blue. I thought I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die. I was like, and what they did, they both had beautiful long blonde hair. And as I'm pinned to the floor, they used to wave their hair in my face like that. And they used to sing to me. There's an old song by a band called Paper Lace. You probably don't know it. It's called Billy, Don't Be a Hero. And they used to sing to me, Billy, don't be a hero. Don't be a fool with your life. That's the song. So I'm lying there kicking and screaming and fighting. In that moment, I made a decision. I decided that no one was ever going to beat me, dominate me, hurt me, or get on top of me ever again, especially women. So I decided that. But in that very same moment, I made an unconscious decision. I was weak. Ask my ex-wife, she'll tell you. So, so I decided that I was weak. So what I did was I had to find a way to prove, cover up and survive being weak in my mind. So then what I did was, because I didn't want no one to know that I was weak. So that's one of the reasons why I became a boxer, was just trying to survive a decision that I made about myself. And then so I started boxing when I was 8, had my first contest when I was 11. And I can remember my third amateur boxing contest. I'm 11 years of age. I'm boxing back in the day. This is over 30 years ago. We're in a big black tie. So everyone's in dinner suits. Everyone's smoking cigars. Little kids boxing. So there I am. So my dad was my coach. So I'm boxing. I box for 3 rounds. I box really well. And I go to the center of the ring and I wait the decision. I think I've won the fight. So I'm there waiting for the decision, and they put the other kid's hand up. A guy called Jason Meager, who's a very good friend of mine now. And he was victorious. And I remember I was devastated. I'm in the center of the ring. I'm in floods of tears. I'm devastated. I made another decision in that moment. I decided that I wasn't good enough. So there I am. I'm 11 years of age. In my mind, unconsciously, I'm weak and I'm not good enough. So the thing is about that, so that decision that I made about myself got hardwired into me, into my identity. So my identity started to get created from 5 years of age, 11 years of age. As we make decisions about life, about ourselves, about people, about the world, it shapes our future, because we all have an opinion of ourselves, right? Each and every one of us, we've all got an opinion of ourselves. So my mum says opinions are like belly buttons. We've all got one and they're all different. So my question to everyone is your opinion of yourself, does it inspire, does it uplift you and empower you to really fulfill on the life that you want for yourself? Because a lot of us, the conversation that we have with ourselves is not very empowering. So it's interrupting that and really getting to the bottom of that to discover who you truly are. So once I did that, I did the work, I tracked it back to how Billy the Boxer was created, and those decisions that I made, they impacted my future. So that's the future then I lived into, was about just trying to prove something. So much so that as a professional boxer, I would enter into the ring challenging for world championship, like those kind of battles, prepared to die. I used to step up into the ring prepared to die. My life was kill or be killed. It's like, that was my existence. So where did that come from? That was born out of those decisions I made as a 5-year-old, 11-year-old. Because that killer instinct, do we all possess it? Is it alive in us all? So what is it that has some people more successful than others? Those conversations just fascinate me. What is that about? And then our futures and how we design and how we live into the futures. And a lot of our futures I've just written already. We're living into a default future. So we have an opportunity to rewrite the default future. And that's mental boxing. It's about disrupting our patterns, our old patterns of thinking, behavior, all of that stuff. And it's waking up to what else is available, or what else is possible for us as human beings. It doesn't have to be based upon what's been before us, because that's the past.
Absolutely.
That's how Billy the Boxer got created.
I want to dig a little deeper onto that, because I think boxing is a as I told you, my only experience with boxing has been waking up in the infirmary after somebody knocked me out, right? So
I know the feeling.
So I've always been fascinated as to why somebody would want to get themselves beat up.
Yes. So my answer to you was that I can only speak for myself. The reason was I was trying to prove something. I was willing to go into the ring to get beaten up to prove that I was good enough and I wasn't weak.
But you could have done something, I guess, if you want to take up sports, right? So badminton, basketball, rugby.
For somebody who's decided in their mind that they're weak, what would they go and do? It makes perfect sense for somebody who thinks they're weak. Go and be a fighter to prove that, because that's completely the opposite. So in that moment when my sisters were beating me up, and there was no harm was meant, they were just being kids being kids. So in that moment I could have become a victim. I could have went the other way. But I went the other way, and I used that to drive me forward. That was a moving away from motivator for me to succeed in my life as a boxer, and in life just generally. Because those
absolutely, but boxing is a very, very tough sport to be in, and to progress to where you've progressed requires a tremendous amount of effort, a tremendous amount of willpower, but also at the same time a tremendous amount of being able to be okay with failure.
Yeah.
Right. And failure for us is about having lost a assignment or got a bad grade or something like that. Failure for you is ending up in hospital.
Yeah. Well, or what, even worse, being permanently damaged. See, boxing,
Absolutely.
as you say, boxing is a brutal, beautiful business. It's brutal. And here's the thing, what you do about boxing. You don't play boxing. You play football, you play rugby, you play golf. You don't play boxing. You go into the ring as a professional boxer to cause bodily damage. And that's the brutal reality of professional boxing, not amateur boxing. Amateur boxing, the context is different. Professional boxing, you go in there to cause bodily damage. Now, I used to go in there prepared to die. That's how committed I was. But I love life. I wouldn't want that, but I was willing to go to that level. And that's what had me excel at it, because I had no fear. I was willing to go beyond, and I was willing. So failure, it's a great word, isn't it? Failure. I talk about failing your way to the top. People are not failing enough. People are frightened of failure, because that word conjures up all sorts of emotions, but none of them are real. None of them are true. There's nothing wrong with failing. If you're not failing enough, you're not playing hard enough. In life, get out there and fail more often, because that's the way we learn. We learn through experience. You get a great education. You've had a private school education. You go to university, you get educated, you read books, you get degrees. But unless you go and implement the information in your life and then go and have an experience with it, what good is it for? It means, unless you're going to be a teacher and then pass that on to students. But for me, as a person and who I am now, and I'm sharing this all the time, go and have some experiences, go and fail, have a team around you who's going to support you and be there for you, who's got your back, who's in your corner. So go and have a go, go and try, go and give it your best shot, fail, come back. So boxing's a great metaphor, because you have a trainer in your corner. The bell goes, you walk to the center of the ring, your team, they step outside the ring, then they look up at you and they're watching you, and they can see things that you can't see. The bell goes, you come back to your corner, you regroup, you get advice off your corner, your team, then you go back out again. And that's the role that I play with my coaching. So my coaching business is all based around that. And I'm guiding people, guiding, pushing, probing, shoving people to really fulfill on their full potential.
Can I just pause you for a second there and push you into that direction just a little bit? Because see, when you're the person who's in the middle of the ring, your attitude, your determination, your focus, your clarity, all of that plays a huge role, as much as what a coach tells you. Because no matter what a coach tells you, ultimately you're the one who's taking the punches, and you're the one who has to give the punches as well. Now, having been that, when you come onto the other side of the fence, is that a difficult transition to make? Because you want to, is it difficult to kind of be the one who tells people what you see, and allow the other person to throw the punches which you can't take anymore in that sense.
So the metaphor, I don't teach people boxing. I'm not a professional boxing trainer. So
sure.
I don't actually do that bit. So in life, the conversations that I have with people is the same scenario, but
exactly,
nobody's getting punched in the face.
Sure.
I trust me, I don't miss getting punched in the face.
Sure.
So I would go out to work on a daily basis. I would be sparring, fighting, getting bashed up most days. And it's very painful, and it's very arduous, and it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough existence. So the work that I do now is it's all metaphor, and it's all so the wisdom that I've gained through boxing and through my life experience and through sharing things in such a way. I had a great conversation earlier on before this call, and it's given people an access to something they can't see for themselves, like the boxing trainer in the corner. He can see the next move ahead of you, and that's kind of like life. I'm that person for other people.
But I guess the reason why I asked that question was because when you're used to activity and being in the center of an activity, being able to step back and watch someone else do it without the impulse to actually step in is very difficult. Right? So and 9 times out of 10, when you're a coach, you need to stay back. Obviously, I mean, if you're a boxing coach, you can't step inside the ring anyway. So there's a clear physical demarcation. Yes. But in life, you do have this sense of urgency to step in and make sure that you steer the person away from the harm that is going to come their way, and that's exactly what you should not be doing.
Yes, I don't have a problem with that. I understand what you're saying. So all we do is give people an access to an opportunity for them to go and have a conversation with somebody, take an action that they've been avoiding, and supporting and encouraging that to happen. So whether they choose to go and do it, like you said about earlier, about the team steps out of the ring, the fighter's the one that's got to go and deliver. So that individuals have to go and deliver. If we agree on something, that maybe this is the action they should go and take, then we agree to that, then they've got to go and do that. I can't do it for them. And I know that, and they know that, and the way for them to progress is for them to go and take the actions that are required for them to move themselves forward to the next level.
On that note, can I kind of probe a little deeper on the psyche side of things, because I think that's something that boxers do have. I mean, it's not to say other athletes don't have it. I mean, of course you do. You have a killer instinct, you have mental fortitude, you have resilience, all of that. But I guess a boxer needs to have a lot more of it, simply because you're very well aware of the cost of the mistakes that you make. And when that happens, knowing that psychologically, to still be able to put in your 100% every day is tough. And that, I think, is what you bring to the party when it comes to life coaching. How do you get someone who's never taken a physical punch to understand what it is to take a punch?
So metaphorically speaking, again, they may not have failed. They may not have really tried. They may not have given it their best shot. So I'm coming from a place of going into the ring, having the drive, the determination, the courage to put yourself at risk, be prepared to fail. So if we're willing to do that, if we can tap into something in another that they want to go and take an inspired action, we got to get them inspired. Get somebody inspired about what it is that they're looking to achieve, and then the next logical step, they kind of just naturally show up for them. And they might have to push beyond their boundaries to take the next step, the next action. But then I'm in their corner supporting them all the way through it. And when they fail, you're there with them. When they get a bloody nose, when they get a black eye, you're there with them. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that didn't work. What didn't work? What could we learn from that experience? And how do we move forward? And that's life. And to excel at something, you've got to be willing to go all in. You've got to be all in, fully committed, because if you mess around with it, you're going to get kind of those kind of results you're going to get.
But the reason I'm asking this is because this is one of the things I get thrown at quite often. And I must admit, I've pondered about this many, many times. There are lots of people who are perfectly happy being mediocre. And that's fine. If that's what you want. The issue is that most mediocre people aren't true to themselves. They want something more, but they've told themselves that lie too many times that they're now quite bought into it. So they think, you know what, I'm having a decent car, I'm having a decent house, I'm having a decent life. Let it be enough. But at the back of your head, something tells you, nah, but that's not enough. Where do you reconcile between the two?
Are you speaking for yourself?
No, I'm not. I'm honestly not.
Okay.
Simply because I've never had the luxury of being able to be mediocre.
I think if people are happy, again, it's another question to ask people. I like to kind of get an idea, a sense of where they're at. So I ask people on a scale of 0 to 10 in life, where would you score yourself on just a general all-round well-being factor? So where would you score yourself, guys, on a 0 to 10? Where would you score yourself?
Genuinely, all my life has been just a 1.
Okay, so where are you today?
Right now, I think if you want to be not be condescending in any way and be brutally honest, I swear to you, I'm on an 11 because I swear I'm absolutely happy where I am.
Beautiful. And yourself, Anton?
Probably at a 6 or a 7, okay. Working my way up, I guess.
Right. So because that's a great conversation. So then the conversation is, but we'll go back to what you mentioned in a minute. So then the question to you is, what are you doing? What do you know that you're doing that's preventing you from being a 10 out of 10? So those are the things that are unconscious to us. So go back into people. If they say that they're happy and they're fulfilled, we can't move people who don't want to be moved.
Absolutely.
So generally, I don't really interact with those people. I generally work with people who want more, who know that they can be more, and they're willing to do something to get more. So they're the people that I work.
And that's the key, and that's why I wanted to kind of get you there. Don't get me wrong, okay? I mean the reason I said 11 is because the conversation isn't about me, so I won't go there. But genuinely,
it's good to go there because people listening to this, they want to know about you too.
well, I'll tell you a little bit of a snippet about it. The reason I said 11 was simply because there was something etched in my mind, very much like Billy the Boxer at 5. We had something of a scholarship exam. I think there is something of that nature in the UK as well, where underprivileged children can actually go to a good school
Yes.
on a scholarship.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to one of the most prestigious schools in Colombo. And that was an absolute culture shock because my mother always tells me, don't say this out loud in public because it's not true. I do say I was poor. And my mother keeps telling me, that's not true, son. We were middle class. We were not poor. You don't know what being poor means. So we were poor. You weren't poor. But I felt poor, right? I really did. And I decided that there was just one thing I wanted. And I think it stuck with me. And I'm going through probably midlife crisis because of it. Because I've done what I set out to do a little earlier than when I thought I would do it. And now that I've done it, I really don't know what I want next, right? So that's the journey I'm on, because there's a dichotomy that happens there, and that's, I guess, where all of these things come from. But the reason why I asked you that question is because the last part, what you said, it's one thing to know you want more. It's another thing to want to do what it takes to get there. And there's a massive gulf in between. And most people who simply observe other people who have been successful think to themselves, I might be able to do it faster than they did, with less pain than they did, and with far less effort than they did. So they get smart about it. And some people get lucky with it. But for most, that very thought is the very reason why they never get there in the first place. Because mentally, they're just not ready to do what it takes to get there. So just because you do what it takes to get there, sometimes you still won't, right? I mean, for example, you've boxed your way to being a champion, which means every other person who actually had the same dream had it shattered because of you, right? So it's what it is. It's not to say they didn't want the same thing, they just wanted it, but you were just better at it.
At that time, at that moment.
Absolutely. And that's all that counts, right? For the belt, I mean, at least not in life, but for the belt, that's all that counts.
Yeah.
So when you have to do that in life, and life isn't a moment in time, life isn't a belt, it's a series of belts that you continuously have.
Yeah.
It's tough when people can't commit to that commitment, which is why I asked you that question, because 9 times out of 10 people who are listening in sometimes tell, you know what, I'm a 7, I'm an 8. But do I really want to put that same time and effort into being a 10 that somebody else would have? And the God honest answer is no. And no coach under the sun can actually help you at that point because you're not willing to make that commitment.
Yeah.
Is that kind of right?
But the 10 out of 10 thing, it's an inside job. It's
Absolutely.
not, it's because what you may be talking about is in pursuit of something. So you're to get what we so call a 10 out of 10 life, you might collapse it with thinking that if I get the job or the relationship or the car or the lifestyle, then that'll allow me to be a 10 out of 10. But no, it doesn't. So it's an insight. So you can be a 10 out of 10 with whatever you've got, wherever you're at, you can be with that. But that's an inside thing. But that's something that I had to grapple with. I grappled with that as a man from 30 years onwards. I've grappled with it for a couple of decades, thinking happiness, fulfillment, and satisfaction is an external thing. But I didn't realize only until the last few years that it's an inside job. So I now I'm happier, more fulfilled and satisfied than I've ever been ever. But it's not attached to anything.
Correct.
I want for nothing in life while I'm in the pursuit of everything. But everything is nothing and nothing is everything.
Correct.
So it's a way of being. So if you be that for yourself and for others, then you're truly invincible. That's power. That's really powerful.
No, you sound like.
And then we can have.
Like my dad now.
I really. He's a wise man.
Because to tell you a little story, right? Since we started on this, my dad used to always tell me, he's amazing. He has always been my little role model, right? And my mom has always been my devil's advocate. So it plays out quite well. But my dad used to always tell me this, and I used to honestly think he was nuts because it didn't make any sense to me growing up. He used to constantly tell me, when I used to get marks and such, right? My mom would look at my score sheet and my report card. My dad never looked at my report card. He used to constantly ask me, "Did you give it all you have?" And my answer would be yes, and it's not true. but just to get away from the next conversation that's going to happen, I would like, yeah, I gave it all I have. And then he says, then you have nothing to worry about. Why are you upset? And I would say, no, but I got low marks. And he says, but that's well, if you gave it all you have, it just means that you suck at that subject, and that's it, right? And that's okay, just fine. But if you didn't give it all you have, why you're feeling bad is because you didn't fulfill that potential of yours. So go out there and make sure that you study more and do that next exam better. And he used to always tell me this, what you exactly said, 10 out of 10 is an inside job. He used to say this in Sinhalese, right? Sieng siyak tierne Oluwatule, you know. So basically to say that it's inside your head. So 100 out of 100 can be a 90, can be an 80, can be a 100, can be a 110, can be a 70, can be a 50, can be a nothing, right? But if you feel like 100 out of 100, even if you got 0 marks, well, he turns around and tells me, look, that's what happiness is. And I used to honestly think he's completely balmy, right? And he used to lecture inside the campus. And I used to ask him, is this what you tell your students? Because they must suck at their subjects if you do right. But he used to constantly tell me this, 100 out of 100 is inside your head. It's a way of how you perceive it. And if you're okay with yourself that way, then nothing else matters. But it's an interesting thought, because the reason why I'm saying this is because that's a polar opposite to sometimes what you need to have as a mindset to be a champion boxer. Being happy with yourself sometimes is actually bad for you in that sense, right? Because it doesn't drive you to be more. How did you reconcile? Because you've gone from that one end of the spectrum to right onto the other side.
Yes.
How do you make that transition?
I've transcended myself. So I found a transition from being Billy the boxer when I retired from boxing to that transition to be Billy in the so-called real world. I found that to be very difficult because I went through an identity crisis, because my identity was created as a child, always trying to prove something, always trying to win. I was in pursuit of winning championships, winning titles. I was a national champion when I was 13. So I've been at the top, in the top echelons in the country, in Europe, in the world for many, many years. So I didn't know anything different. So what happened to me was I had to reach a crisis point, because when I retired from boxing, I went through depression, the identity crisis. I really started to question myself. Who am I? What's the meaning of life? What is it all about? Those conversations that we sometimes have, I was living and breathing those. And that's when I created my brand, Mental Boxing, because those two words came together when I was in the middle of a depressive episode. I went so low. I had a mental breakdown. I was suffering. I was in despair. I hit rock bottom. And those, mental boxing, because I realized that I was having a mental boxing match with myself and the voice in my head. The internal dialogue, that conversation that we sometimes have with ourselves. Can I? Can't I? Shouldn't I? What am I going to look like? What are they going to think of me? Am I going to get it wrong? What am I going to look stupid? That conversation. But then we have conversations like that with other people as well. It's an unconscious mental boxing match we're having. Sometimes, not all the time, with people. We're trying to outmaneuver. We're trying to dominate. We're trying to look for the angle. We're trying to be right, get on top to win. And then sometimes we do that in relationships as well. I mean, have you ever had a disagreement or an argument with a partner? Nobody wins that fight. Nobody wins it. So that's the thing, to reconcile that. I realized that, and the internal battle that I was having, I thought, this is not serving me. This is not serving Billy. I didn't know who Billy was, because Billy the boxer. Here's the thing that I really got as well, and it's a paradox. What had Billy the boxer become a world champion was now having Billy fail in life. Those winning attributes, the winning combination that I had was, I was persistent, I was courageous, I would never give up. That was like a winning combination that I had. Those things that had me become a world-class athlete. But what goes with those things as well, other attributes which are not really all that nice, which you wouldn't really want to admit. And what goes with that set are, I was selfish, I was always right, I was domineering, I was aggressive, I was inconsiderate. All of those attributes also, they fit with the nice ones, but they worked in the boxing arena. They were perfect for me to step up into the ring with all those traits, kill or be killed. That was a perfect scenario. But then in life, Billy the boxer just didn't work. So I talked about my ex-wife. So that way of being in the ring in a marriage doesn't work. But unless you know how to be some other way, you don't know. So I didn't know how to be any other way. So it wasn't until I kind of reached a crisis point. I wrecked my marriage. I went through depression. I went through bankruptcy. I lost everything. I crashed. I had no future. I had nothing. I moved back home with my parents and I had to regroup and rebuild myself. I had a mental breakdown. There were some days where I had suicidal thoughts. I was that low and I was in the depths of despair. So I've come from there to be here today, a 10 out of 10, happy, fulfilled and satisfied, because I've been doing the work ongoingly for the last 17, 18 years. And that's my life purpose. And my purpose now is the transformation of the middle-aged man. That's my mission, because there's lots of middle-aged men who are suffering like I was. I suffered when I retired from boxing. I was 31, so I went through a tough decade trying to figure myself out. But I was also ashamed. I was embarrassed, and I felt like, talk about failure earlier. I felt like a complete failure because mental health wasn't really discussed all that openly 18 years ago. Now it's talked about everywhere. It's freely talked about. But I was trying to go through that on my own. I was trying to figure it out, and I didn't get any help. And I kind of made a complete mess of it. And it wasn't until I found the courage to reach out and get myself a coach, that was when I started to work on myself. And that was when I transformed Billy the boxer into Billy. The funny thing was, as I was working on myself, transforming myself, I started to learn how to coach, mentor and train other people. And it was around that time I discovered my passion, my life purpose. My life purpose is to inspire and empower people to live a life they love with passion, power and purpose. And I discovered how much that I love people, which really shocked me because I'd spent all my life bashing people up. And now I want to just love them. That's what I'm saying to people, which is completely the polar opposite to how I was before. So it's been my own transformation, my own journey, and that's what I'm sharing with people. Not only that's the human story that I have, and I've been studying, I've done thousands and thousands of hours with people in rooms talking about what it is to be a human being. And I've dismantled Billy the boxer to find out who Billy is. I peeled back all the layers of my identity to break free from the past, because that was Billy the boxer was constraining Billy. It was a constraint. So I had to figure out how to get free from that to really be myself, because I didn't know who Billy was, because Billy the boxer was created from 8 years of age, from 5 years of age. So then when I'm if I've been living that life for 5 years or so, who are you really? The question to us all, who are you really? And that's the journey that I went on, and I had to go on that journey because I was in a crisis. There was no other way out for me. It was rock bottom, and the only way was up. So my advice is, people, don't go to rock bottom. You don't need to go. Learn through my experience, learn through other people's experiences, so you don't have to go and make the same mistakes that I did. But some of us won't listen to that, because if I spoke to myself at that time, I probably wouldn't have listened to me either. I had to go and experience my experience to learn, and that was. And I think
I think that is profound, because sometimes, and I think we have this issue with our kids, isn't it? Because sometimes we see our kids making the same mistakes we did, and we want to jump in and save them, but that's the worst thing that you can do, because you got to help them make those same mistakes sometimes in order for them to experience it, so that they have that reference point. Now, but I guess the wisdom that we bring is only relevant if there is a reference point. If there's no reference point, it's just a concept. It's a bit like me talking to you about boxing. At least I've taken a punch, so I can refer to it at some point. But if you've never taken a punch inside a boxing ring, you can conceptualize it in your mind from a purely conceptual perspective, but you have no reference point to it. And that makes it difficult to have a conversation around it because you have no idea what you're talking about. I can understand it from a purely intellectual perspective, but I have no reference to it. But can I just pause you for a moment then? A small phrase that I picked up. I want to make sure that middle-aged men, find purpose and meaning. And I saw the book behind you, Man Up. Talk to us a little bit about that. How did that come about, and what's in it?
So my mission is the transformation of the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man, if they're ready and if they're willing and if they want to transform themselves, that's great, but not everyone does. So, but I just believe the world would be a different place if middle-aged men were willing to go to work on themselves. The women would love it in this world. All the wives out there, they would love for their husbands to go and do some work on themselves. So it's only because I see suffering. I don't want people to suffer like I have. So if I can support people through the suffering or prevent the suffering and bring some light during the suffering or after the suffering to then rebuild a life after. So that's what I'm bringing. I'm bringing some light to the situation, to the circumstance. Let's not be a victim of it. Let's take ownership of it. Let's get creative and let's do that together. So then we can get out of the darkness and into the light and create the future. Because as a middle-aged man, I'm 51 years of age. I'm going to live till I'm 130. So I'm only just getting started. I'm a baby. I'm just getting going. I've got a long way to go yet. And that's the same for us all. If we look after ourselves physically, mentally, nutritionally, if we take care of this body of ours as best we can, and the mental fitness part of our bodies, our beings as well, the spiritual side of things, then there's no reason why we can't live beyond 100. But it's having those later years, it's having them being really fulfilled, satisfied, strong, vital and vibrant, not being old and decrepit.
Can I just ask why men though? As in rather than people? There was no confusion there, but
I'm a man, so I don't really work with. I'm open to working with women, but generally I connect better with men because men can relate to me more so. Not all the time. I do work with women, but I don't. The programs that I run are generally with men. But I'm open to it. I have conversation with lots of women, but not in the same. And it's different because I'm bringing that my male energy to the conversation. And when I'm with a group of men, they relate to me, and women can relate to me also. They can. I can connect with my vulnerability, that side of being a man, which they can relate to that as well. So it does work with women, but generally I just I'm pulled towards men. That's why. And the book, so the thing about the title of the book is a bit controversial, and maybe it's not politically correct, but politics is not always correct either. But Man Up, the reason I called it Man Up was because I was a man down. I was at rock bottom. So man up. Well, this is me. I had to man up. And it's not what you think it is. Man up is not about being aggressive, domineering. It's about being vulnerable. It's about connecting with yourself. The conversation that we're having, that's not a fighter. Well, we're all warriors. The way that I like to look at men is about being peaceful warriors. There's a great book called Peaceful Warrior. And it's and that's creating middle-aged men to be that.
But can I just quickly stop you there? Is it because and the reason why I asked the previous question is, if you work with men and women both, and you have, but why is it that men are less, I'm trying, without me knowing it, I'm trying to be politically correct here.
I can tell.
Why is it that
Going very well.
yeah, no, I mean, men can be more jackasses than not, right? I mean, why is that? Is it just the testosterone and
I think most men are still kids. Most men behave like kids.
Yeah, we do, right?
Yeah, and that's basically it. We behave like kids, and once we get triggered by something, we revert back to being a 5-year-old. Then we act out like we're a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, and it doesn't serve anyone. Women are different. Women are the masters of us. They're far stronger than we are. I can only speak for myself, but women are so much more powerful than I am. I think they're amazing. Women are, and as a collective, they're so powerful, and they bring something extraordinary to the table. But men, like you say, we can be like children, and it doesn't serve anybody or the world or anyone. But unless it's about being conscious. I want to get men conscious. Wake up to what's going on and the way that you're operating, and then have a look. Does it work? Could it be something, other way of being, other way of performing? That's the thing to look at. Is your life working?
No, and to just as a follow-up on that, as much as why is that, it's sometimes difficult, especially when you talk about being a man. It's very difficult for most men to reconcile the fact that being a man is exactly what you shouldn't be, in that sense, right? Because that's what's creating all of the tension, all of the negativity and everything else. How do you get a man to have a conversation about why not to be a man? I don't know any other way of saying that. Not being a typical man or whatever it's called, right?
Yeah.
Because it's harmful to yourself.
I think a lot of men feel like they're a failure because they either haven't reached where they thought they was going to get in their career. They may not have the body that they want. As they get into their late 40s, they might not have the body that they want. They might not have the career that they thought they was going to have. They might not be in the position that they thought they were going to be in. Some men feel like they've failed. And then so that impacts them. So they got to forgive themselves for being where they're at. And where they're at is where they're at. And it's okay to be where you're at. I think we have a preconceived, or like there's an opinion that we have of ourselves that we want to be somewhere else than where we're at, that's not going to have us be a 10 out of 10, because if we think we should be some other way than the way that we are, then that's not a 10 out of 10. So we have to bring a level of forgiveness, acceptance to ourselves and our lives, and surround ourselves with people, partners who support us in moving forward to where we want to get to. What do we want? Where do we want to go to? What does that look like? But that's not the whole thing. So I think men sometimes struggle with that. They want to be somewhere else rather than where they're at in themselves.
Could I ask a very specific question, and forgive me for asking this because I know it's your stock and trade, but without getting into specifics in any form, can I just ask you, if a man actually feels that way and really wants to get help, is there like a hotline or a place that you can look up? Because 9 times out of 10 we speak about these things, but not from a gender specific perspective.
Yeah.
And lots of women have help in that sense.
Yeah.
Men don't. Honestly, I don't know of any place that I could just ring up and say, you know what, I'm a man in midlife crisis. What the hell do I do? Yeah. And I don't think a woman can actually give me. I'm not saying that a woman can't. What I'm saying is, I don't think a woman can actually quite understand me in the same way that you would, for example, right?
Yeah.
So where do we call as men?
There are lots of groups on Facebook. There's lots of men groups on Facebook. There are those available. There are products. It all depends on where you're at, whether you're in the depths of despair. There's the Samaritans. You could ring the Samaritans up. Depends on where you're at. in life. If you're suicidal, then you could ring the Samaritans up, for example. That's what we have over here in the UK. That's a hotline, but then whether you speak to the right person, a male or female, I don't know. But then there is groups. There are various groups on Facebook, and that is kind of, that's where I'm at. So I work with those guys and then take them on a journey to transform themselves over time. So that's what I do. So people can speak to me. I speak to people all the time. But then, yeah, and it's giving them an access to themselves, but they don't really know who they are either.
No, and just to kind of probe that just a tad deeper, is it fair to say that men probably would not instinctively reach out as much as women would, or is that not true?
I think you're right, because I struggled as a man to reach out. It took me a couple of years to really find the courage to reach out, because most of us don't do that. I'm finding lots that's changing as well. That's shifting, because mental health is taught so openly these days. That's making a shift. That is definitely shifting things for men. Men are having more conversations, but it's not a natural thing for us to do. For some people more than others, but some men just really struggle with it.
And just to kind of close the loop on that, if you do need help, what signs would you look out for? What would be the warning signs to say, you know what, you really do need to get help? Apart from the obvious ones of, if you have suicidal tendencies, yes, you need help. But beyond that, as a man hitting midlife crisis, what are the telltale signs?
Well, it's been, we kind of spoke, you touched on it earlier about, you might have reached a plateau. You might have got to a point. You might start to put weight on. You might exercise less. You might start to not really care so much. Your marriage might be failing. Your relationship, things will start to deteriorate, as well as your body. You might be drinking too much. You might be watching, you might be addicted to the internet. You might be on that stuff. Those are kind of warning signs. And the weight, I find the weight thing for men is a flag. If you're a stone overweight and you're starting to drift that way, that's a flag, because something's causing that to happen.
Right. I'm conscious of time, but I do have two questions I must ask. The first is you've been physically fit, and you've been, the later part of your journey at least is mental fitness, if you want to call it that, right? And even as a boxer, there's a different side to the psyche, that you need to be mentally fit. You can't waver on it. How do you get a person to be physically and mentally fit? Because most of the time what I find is that if you're physically fit, you're not mentally there. If you're really mentally there, most of the time, if you take a look at it, they're not physically in peak performance. It's very rare that you find a person who's actually a combination of both. How do you make sure that you're both?
I would disagree with you, because I believe that they go together.
Okay.
So if you work on your physical body, your mental fitness will go with it. They go there. So I'm speaking not as an academic. I'm speaking as an athlete, as a man in the world. So I know when I'm physically fit, I meditate most days. So I'm doing the mental fitness. I'm doing the mental work as well as the physical work. So with the meditation, with the mindfulness, with the physical being and the resistance training, working my muscles and my cardiovascular health, they fit together, and they sharpen me up. So if I let one of them go, so if I stop meditating for some time or stop training, I slip off. So with the physical exercise and the mental work that I do, that keeps me sharp. So it's moving your body. Just get moving. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to do anything extraordinary. Get walking. We can all walk. Hopefully, if you can walk, go get walking and then gentle jogging, there's just moving your body. I mean, yeah, just doing functional exercise, functional movement, touching your toes. A lot of men can't do their shoelaces up. Right? It's just kind of basic, very basic stuff. And my true belief is if you're physically fit, your mental fitness will go with it. That's what I believe. And that's I can only for myself.
No, that's true. But the reason why I asked that question is because sometimes people do actually focus on the mental aspect of it without actually looking at the physical aspect of it. And I think that's a big mistake, because there is a physical dimension even to the mind in that sense. And you can't be mentally okay on a weak body, right? I mean, it's very difficult.
Yeah, because I encounter that with corporate executive guys, very successful, top level jobs, but their bodies are wrecked because they're spending their time focusing on the mental success of their role at work. They neglect their body, which breaks down eventually.
Absolutely.
So the way that I view those guys, they're corporate warriors. They've got to be corporate athletes, corporate warriors. They've got to look after their nutrition, their well-being, their mental state, their physical well-being. Because if you imagine, if you could incorporate all them together, you're going to produce better results at work. And ultimately that's going to impact the bottom line. So if you're sharper, you're focused, that's going to mental, physical, nutritional fitness. That's going to make more money.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And again, mindful of time, so I will pass it on to Anton with one final question. I'm always curious when a person has actually reached absolutely the top of their chosen profession, made a very successful veer into something completely different and been successful there. Where do they go from that point onwards? So what's next for you?
So what's next for me is there is no next. This is it. I'm in it, living, breathing my work. So this is it. So there's nowhere for me to get to, so to speak. And I'm in the pursuit of everything. I'm building a business. I'm making a difference to young people. I've got projects that I've got a vision about making. One of my commitments in life is that kids and teenagers have the opportunity to create and live their dreams, because dreams do come true. I'm going to go on an amateur boxing club tour, because in the UK there's hundreds of amateur boxing clubs. I want to go and impact young people in boxing clubs and go and deliver my mental boxing masterclass, so I can impact and make a difference to young people. So that's something in the future. What has me be happy now is I love myself, I love my life, and I love the future that I'm creating, and the future that I'm creating moment by moment, and the future that I'm living into. So the future that I'm living into is compelling, and it's exciting. So that feeds right back to me right in this present moment and has me be happy, fulfilled and satisfied. And that's the future, because it's all about the future that I'm creating, the future that I'm designing, the future that I'm living into feeds right back to me in this present moment and has me feel amazing. And life is not perfect. My life is not perfect. I'm not perfect. But I'm fully responsible for the future that I'm creating. And that's it.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that, because I think that summed it up. You love the future you're creating, but it feeds right back into you, who you are, who is actually, creating the future. And that couldn't be summed up better.
And it loops and it keeps looping around. So you have to be, I live with integrity. I honor myself. I'm doing good work. That's why I love myself. I never used to be like that, though. I wasn't a nice person in the past. The person who wrecked his marriage wasn't the same person I am now. I'm a different person. So I love that person and I love who I am. And then I love my life. Look at what we're doing. I love this. It's an opportunity for me to be with you guys and speaking to your people. I love that.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you very, very much for that. I don't want to overstep time. So, Anton, back to you.
Right. So that's Billy Schwer, the former British, Commonwealth, European and World Boxing Champion, who is now a personal performance coach. So Billy, thank you very, very much for carving out a moment in time from your busy schedule. Really, really appreciate. And I can truly say that this has been an hour of thrilling, what stories, what amazing takeaways of absolute pure inspiration. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Do watch our social media spaces for the links to join in. This conversation will be up on our YouTube channel. So do visit, do subscribe, and do hit that notification button to stay updated, and remember to share. With this, I bid you a wonderful rest of the day. Stay safe, stay productive.